Yes, very quick points on a number of issues. One is my sister from Tanzania. No, the program that I was referring to deals with agriculture. But obviously, after this conference, we'll bring agriculture into that program because we were treating nutrition. We were treating it separately. But obviously now we need to see how we can bring it in so that all these things are connected and that everyone sees the connections, because now it's separate. The issue from Ethiopia on the lack of technology, what we find is that radio has transcended almost everything else now. Because, I mean, we address issues of tradition, for instance. You know, there's a fair amount of urbanization and people moving out. So the role of the grandfather or uncle is no longer there because these guys have gone away. So radio has replaced those people who have gone away, dealing with traditions, explaining idioms and proverbs and explaining the people's history. So in many parts of Africa today, you won't wait for internet or even although the cell phone is reaching out now, but radio is the one that is interactive, okay? Because many of those that have cell phones won't read or write, so they can't send messages. It's just voice. And then health issues we've dealt with. For instance, we used to have cholera as a problem. Since the last 5 or so years, almost no case has been reported. And it's because radio has provided the information in a manner that has made people to understand. The question of vocabulary is obviously an issue because we have 6 languages in our area. The government policy on language for education and broadcasting was that one of those 6 was the one in use. So children who go to school learn to write and read in that language. When we opened our station, we ignored the government language policy and said all the other languages must be used because we must reflect the community to itself. And what has happened is that we are reviving languages that were almost on the point of disappearing. Of course, translation is still an issue, but for instance, just the name of the station, Breeze, translates in the local language, it's at least 3 words, okay? So other words, of course, will be even more difficult. But to get around it is not to translate literally, but look at the broader meaning of what is being said, and I think that has helped us get away. Media does not have to focus on conflict, my colleague there. Because we are community-based, if we did that, we would also burn along with everyone else. So it is in our own interest to ensure that, in fact, we contribute to reducing conflicts. And there are many examples of how we've done that. I mean, I'll give an example. We have a very strong Indian community. They are Zambians of Indian origin, and they are controlling the mercantile business. When we opened the station, there was an issue that made some people unhappy, and they came out with placards. The radio station covered that story, but did not say what the placards said. Afterwards, we had complaints from both sides. The people that realized we didn't put what they had written on the placard said, why did you do that? Then the people that were involved, the Indian businessmen also said, but the story came out. And I told my staff, that means we did the right thing. In any case, we subdued that issue. It was reported on, yes, but we made it appear for what it was, that it was only within the community and that there should be discussion and that there's really no need to burn the whole town because of that matter.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Lighter, any
Thank you. No, we rushed. Well, many thanks. I think it's really interesting. I think I would just try to say that there are platforms, as you were saying, JJ and Rainier. I think the CI is a really interesting platform. I know you're here and you're facilitating, but I'll sell it for you. Basically, the Communication Initiative has more than 100,000 or 85,000 people working on communication and media, a lot on health, a lot on agriculture, a little bit less on nutrition, but a lot also. And there's a lot of different strategies, from theater in the rural areas to high-tech use of new technologies and mobile. So I think that's a very good resource to look at. a couple of people have asked for examples and lessons learned and not reinventing the wheel. So I think the CI, the communication initiative, is a great resource. And basically it's because we believe in the not reinventing the wheel, and not best practice is not best practice, is what you can use from different experiences and whether it's suitable for your own context. So that applies to your question on the Farmers Association and the gentleman from the language and from the Nepal question, right? The other thing I would insist is on evidence base. I think let me go back. I think that there's a lot of decision makers here in the room that actually should have in mind that a communicator or a communication specialist, as you were saying, JJ, is somebody that needs to be embedded in the planning of a development intervention, whatever it be. It's not somebody that just does the press report for the boss, or it's got to be seen as part of a structurally designed team, because communication has to flow from the beginning of an intervention, whatever it may be it a school system, or be it in bringing youth into the agriculture, or youth migrating to urban areas, or whatever. It's just a communicator and a communication participatory mobilization perspective needs to be embedded in your organizations, and I think that's a critical issue. And then to convince the VIPs or decision makers that one of the big challenges for us as communicators, whether we do interpersonal media, mass media, whatever, is evidence. There's quite a huge movement on the communication side to produce the data and the indicators so that we can actually say your investment is a long-term investment, because this is a difference between using communication and not using it. And I think that's a self-criticism of our sector. We're not rigorous enough with evidence, and that's a huge issue in funding. And what we do costs money, even if we do the simplest of the interpersonal dialogue in a village, but it needs a lot of investment. And lastly, I'd say that I would insist on the space of youth and children, because this is a key issue, at least in Colombia and Latin America. The expulsion of the rural areas towards the urban areas is huge. Colombia today is a country which is agricultural per se as a culture, but 75% of our population is living in the big cities, slums, etc., etc. And a big challenge is, how do you make a status again of being in the rural area, and a young person working on the ground with his hands, is as important as being a high-tech, whatever. So there's that cultural youth new challenge to address youth.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to divide the final 20 minutes into about 10 more minutes of about 10 more minutes of questions, and then I've got a little something as a takeaway. You are at some stage going to need 2 business cards, so during questions, get out a couple of business cards. So now, who did I cut off before? Yes, sir, down the back, and then here, and then there, and then, yep, and then. So, the gentleman standing up. I think that's the trick, actually. If you just stand up, I've got no option.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for seeing me. Thanks to the panel.
My honor.
I just wanted to raise an issue which I think we haven't touched on. The issue of deep-seated, by the way, my name is Bashasha. I'm from Makerere University, Uganda. Deep-seated professional prejudices. I come from the university, so I have seen this. You have health students, public health saying we have nothing to do with agriculture. We are better than agriculture students. You have veterinary students saying, oh, wait a minute, we are not agriculture. I have a case where we are trying to transform the university, and the vet school has refused to join the agriculture school because they say we have nothing to do with agriculture. So my sister from Ghana, what you raised I think is important, but we have an issue there to deal with. If young students can't talk to each other, then when they are professionals, it becomes even more difficult to work with each other. The second point, Mr. Chairman, is about the extension systems. I haven't had that one come out. Traditionally, we have agriculture extension systems. So probably we can have the agriculture extension carry a message of health and maybe nutrition alongside. Or we start other extension systems that are focused on health and nutrition. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Right next to you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Marie Marin. I'm with Concern Worldwide, and I've been thinking about an obvious group who are going to naturally bring these 3 sectors together is women farmers.
Women
Farmers who have the responsibility for farming, for health, for feeding their families, and if any group knows about how to juggle these three things, it's them. And any kind of opportunities to enable these women farmers to join farming associations, health associations, have access to agriculture extension services, etc., might help us to really understand how these sectors work together at that level.
So someone was just behind you, I think, that wanted to get in. Yes, just on the right. And then we'll come down to the front.
Yeah, I'm Alka. I work with
Sorry,
US.
just one sec. Is the microphone on or it's on? It's on. Yeah. Up to your mouth, I think is the...
Right. I'm Alka and I work with USAID India in the Food Security Office on communications. And just a couple of observations. We were talking about embedding communication specialists within. I completely agree with you. But there's also my previous experience has been that sometimes, communications, everything is loaded onto communications, and you're supposed to achieve everything which probably program is not able to achieve, and communication is supposed to achieve that. So the goals and objectives of what communication can do and what cannot do, I think should also be very clearly understood and outlined by everyone. And also that professionals at various levels, right on top, right to the bottom, whoever's working should also somewhere understand what their role is in relation to their own work, but also the other person. I mean, the agriculture person should also understand how his work relates to nutrition, and nutrition, how it relates to agriculture. So that part of it, I think, has to also come from maybe the management or with communications and things. One thing which I would really like to know more about is advocacy and advocacy tools on because that, I think, is the best way to for at least at the higher level policy.
We're going to come down to the front. There's someone down the front that wanted to. Yes.
May I take advantage?
Okay, where you go? Yeah. Chair is overruled again.
My name is Luna Bazdu. I work with Helen Keller International. I'm a rural development sociologist, and I work in this cross field between agriculture on one side and the nutritionist and health people on the other side. And what I hear all the time, and what you started out with this morning on the presentation here, that pyramid on its head with the experts and the lay people. In many cases, what happens if you're an agricultural expert or in academia, you're probably either an insider, an interested person, or a lay person when it comes to nutrition and health and so on, and vice versa. But often when we lead things as experts, we have problems accepting anything but the first best solution, anything but the perfect solution. And I would just like to add in and this to say that we should not let the perfect become the enemy of the good. It is very important. If we want to reach any of this, we have to make compromises. As an expert, we have to make a compromise, and maybe it's not, in my view, in my field, expert view, the most perfect solution, but we make a compromise with the other disciplines. And that's how we can get to also the extensionist level. We have to simplify some of the expert views and solutions. Thank you.
So, gentlemen here in the corner, and then I'm going to come over to this side.
Okay, I'm Robert Mwadime from Uganda. JJ, because we're in politics. What is actually happening is what is actually happening is that the farmers and those people at community level, there's as much as they can do. Most of what actually affects us is related to the decisions that people at that level make and the policies that they put across. So what is happening is that we cannot trust politicians because they have all these vested interests. They are the ones who own the businesses that buy the products. They are the ones who buy and sell them. So actually most of the times they can even hold a product or open the borders or close them for their vested interests. So what I'm trying to ask is, how do we farmers at that level, when we feel our needs and desires are not being met by those people there, how do we communicate? Because I'm just wondering, do we have to reach the Egyptian style?
Okay. I think you made your point very compellingly. Oh, yes, right.
Well, I'm
About what, 15 more minutes? Is that right?
I'm Tirtha Rana from Nepal. I'm a public health nutritionist. What I want to propose that, whatever I heard from the learned speakers over here, reaching to the people at the community level, that is most important, and mobilizing themselves to work for the people over there. Because like community mobilizers, community health volunteer, we in Nepal, we have 80% of our population are remote and rural people, and they are the ones who are not literate, and they do not understand what we want to give them. So it is better, enable those people and talk to their own language. That is most important. Talking to the people from the local people by the local people themselves.
And the way Mike was describing, for example, in Zambia.